3 spine-chilling true encounters with the sinister. Discover the hidden horror no one exposed. Ava crouched in the corner of her small bedroom, clutching her stuffed bunny, Mr. Fluff, as the shadows danced along the walls. 10 years old and living in a new suburban neighborhood, she felt alien in her own home. The whispers started as a faint rustle, like dried leaves skittering across the ground, growing louder in the dead of night. Now, something darker lurked just out of sight, a presence that seemed to breathe with the walls themselves, a suffocating force wrapping around her. What secrets did this house hide? Peeking through her window, Ava observed the Johnsons next door. Their perfect smiles and manicured lawn were facade, she could sense it. Strange lights flickered from their home when the clock revealed midnight. A soft humming vibrated in the air, a tune that clung to her skin and sent chills down her spine. "You're imagining things," her mother, Sarah, would say after long shifts at the diner, her tired eyes dismissing Ava's fears. But the darkness whispered persistently, tugging at rear corners of her mind. The first sinister sighting came one night when Ava couldn't sleep. She felt drawn, compelled to look out the window. Just beyond the window frame, she saw 2 figures in the Johnsons' backyard, barely illuminated by the moonlight. They stood together, swaying back and forth, their heads inclined as if in prayer. A cold breeze washed over Ava, and her heart raced. Just as she tried to rationalize it, one of them turned, and she saw a flash of something red on their shirt, a stain. But she blinked, and they were gone. Days stretched into a nightmarish cycle. She often found herself half awake, hearing their voices murmur like a lost language, an echo that crawled beneath her skin. Once, when she ventured into the hallway, the walls seemed to pulse. She pressed her ear to the wood, and all at once, the whispers intensified, intertwining with her thoughts. She could almost make out her name, creeping through her mind like acid. A trick of the night, she told herself, until she found muddy footprints leading from her back door to the Johnsons. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ava's world twisted tighter. Each passing night seemed to reveal more about the Johnsons. Local legends whispered about them at school, tales of spirits feeding off broken dreams echoed in her ears. The adults, oblivious, dismissed the stories as folklore, but Ava felt the truth bleeding through. Determined to save her mom from whatever darkness lurked, she crept into the Johnsons' yard one fateful night, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Through a crack in the boards of the old fence, she glimpsed their attic window, the flickering glow a beacon for her fear. As if drawn by an invisible thread, she felt herself approaching. As shadows shifted and the wind howled, she spotted something strange, items illuminated by the moonlight. They glinted like the lost treasures of forgotten children. Then, the howl of a child's laughter punctured the silence, chilling her to the bone. Suddenly, the door creaked and a low, melodic chant slithered into her ears. Ava's heart lurked somewhere in her throat. She turned to run, but within the attic, something sinister stirred, a mirror, black and ancient, reflecting not just her terrified face but something deeper, something lost. Would she find the will to escape, or would she become just another soul trapped in this nightmare? Ava stumbled back from the window, her breath hitching in her throat. The flickering light had dimmed, but the eerie chanting poured over her like a thick fog. Fear coiling tightly in her chest, she turned and dashed through the gap in the fence, her heart pounding as she navigated the shadows lurking in her own backyard. Each step echoed in her ears, a reminder of her racing thoughts. What had she just seen? An attic filled with strange treasures and the sound of children's laughter. But who were those figures? The question gnawed at her, driving her deeper into the darkness of her own fears. As she reached her door, she hesitated. What if her mom was right? What if she was just being foolish? Yet the whispers had a pull, an urgency she couldn't ignore. She glanced back at the Johnsons, their house now cloaked in silence. The warmth of the outside world felt just out of reach. That night, sleep shunned her. The silence grew unbearable, amplifying the subtle sounds, each creak in the house echoing her dread. Then came the whispers again, creeping through the walls, merging with the soft murmur of the wind. "Ava, Ava, help us!" They seemed to draw closer, forming a chorus of disembodied voices, rising from the very foundations of her home. "Stop!" She shouted into the void, but her voice only bounced back to her, swallowed by her own fear. She pressed her fingers against her ears, but it didn't work. The sound burrowed under her skin. Desperate for silence, she snatched Mr. Fluff from her bed. Clutching him tight, she struggled to regain her composure. Suddenly, she remembered the mirror. It wasn't just reflecting the empty space around it, it showed something else, a world twisted and dark, steeped in shadows that danced just beyond her reach. What if that mirror could show her what the Johnsons' attic hid? Without thinking, she threw on her shoes and crept downstairs, heart racing faster than her feet. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every rustle of leaves or distant car echoed like a warning bell in her ears. As she stood before the Johnsons' fence once more, she hesitated. Up close now, the house seemed to loom over her, like a predator waiting to pounce. The shadows etched deeper, exposing secrets longing to break free. Gathering her courage, Ava slipped through the gap, the cold air biting at her skin. She made her way to the attic window, her heart drumming wildly against her ribs. The humming from earlier began to rise again, creating an unsettling harmony with the faint chants that slipped out of the cracks. Just then, a hand touched her shoulder, icy and unyielding. She froze, a scream clawing at her throat. She turned slowly, lips parting in horror, but there was no one there. Just shadows dancing, laughing, reaching for her. She saw the mirror now, illuminated by the light seeping through the window. This time, it felt alive, beckoning her closer. But the moment she stepped toward it, the reflection shimmered, distorted, revealing faces she could almost recognize, eyes wide with longing, cries echoing in anguish. Ava was on the brink of knowledge, the truth teetering at her fingertips. What lay beyond the veil of that mirror? Would she dare to uncover it, or would she run, fleeing the darkness that had already begun to consume her? The weight of the choice hung heavy in the air. She took a deep breath, eyes locked on the swirling depth of the glass. "Please help us," the voices didn't just whisper, they wove a spell. But what awaited her on the other side? Ava stepped closer to the mirror, the air growing thicker, almost electric. The whispers intensified, blending into a siren-esque call. "Help us, find us," the words wrapped around her limbs, enticing and terrifying all at once. Shadows flitted just out of her line of sight, growing more pronounced, more desperate. With trembling hands, she reached out, fingertips grazing the surface of the glass. Coolness surged through her body, sending shivers spiraling through her spine. The mirror pulsed like a living thing, drawing her in. Images surged forth, scenes twisting with harrowing sadness. Laughter turned to screams, faces warped in agony. But within that chaos, she glimpsed children, their eyes closed, trapped between worlds. Ava's heart thundered. These were the same faces she had seen glimpses of, echoing in her dreams. This had to be connected to the attic, to the Johnsons. She couldn't back away now. The shadows beckoned her, an almost tangible hand reaching through the mirror, brushing against her skin. She inhaled sharply, the chill slinking deeper. "Who are you?" she gasped, her voice barely breaking the suffocating silence. "Save us!" the cry pierced her, sharp and keen, resonating from the depths of despair. The mirror rippled violently. "You can break it, Ava. You are so close." She gulped, a sense of dread washing over her. But that name, the way it rolled off their tongue, it felt familiar, like an old echo. She pulled back, her instincts screaming at her to flee. Yet, she couldn't. The children, they were calling. The attic creaked, an unsettling groan that vibrated through the floorboards. She turned, eyes darting toward the darkness shrouding the room. There he was again, a shadowy figure at the corner, its form wavering as if caught between solid and void. Ava's breath caught. Was it a child? No. Stay away, she cried, retreating towards the mirror, desperate for its mysterious safety. The whispering grew louder, urging her to come closer, offering her solace against the encroaching darkness. Help us find us, we all need you. Tightly clutching Mr. Fluff, she spun back to the mirror. The reflection had transformed. It now displayed a stark, barren landscape beyond the glass, a dead village, twisted trees, and unsettling stillness. She shivered at the sight, unholy and haunting. But as her focus sharpened, a flicker of life caught her eye. There, among the shadows, a child stood, their small frame silhouetted against the backdrop of despair. Help me, their voice, ringing clear, chased away the whispers. A sense of recognition coursed through Ava. Who are you? She whispered, heart hammering. Help us escape, the child urged, taking a step forward as if trying to break free from the clutches of the mirror. The air crackled with potential, pulsing like a heartbeat, and then, with a sudden rush, everything changed. The attic erupted in chaos, windows rattled, shadows spiraled, and the whispers turned to screams. It felt like the house itself was trying to breathe. Ava stumbled back, her mind racing. What were they trapped in? How could she save them? A vision struck her. The attic filled with treasures, a relic, glowing faintly at its center. It had to be there, but did she dare confront whatever darkness lurked? She glanced back at the mirror. The child's eyes pleaded, begging. The time for choices was slipping away. With each heartbeat, the shadows grew denser, stronger, threatening to consume her. The mirror, too, trembled, caught between realms. Suddenly, a burst of light flared from the mirror, illuminating the room. You must choose. The child cried, voice cracking against the storm of terror. Now. Ava's instincts screamed for her to run, but she felt the pull towards the figure. The reflection was her only chance to find out the truth. Would she face the horror of that attic, or succumb to the dark? With a leap of faith and one last glance back at the child, Ava plunged deeper into the unknown, her heartbeat echoing her desperation. What awaited her on the other side, and what horrors would she have to confront? Would she be there? Savior or another lost soul forever ensnared? The moment Ava stepped through the mirror, a jolt of icy wind slammed into her, nearly knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasped, eyes widening as she found herself standing on an uneven cobblestone path, leading deeper into an ominous, desolate village. The air was thick with a rancid smell, decay mixed with an otherworldly stagnation that clung to her like a heavy shroud. The sky above was a sickly shade of gray, swirling with clouds that threatened to crush the earth beneath. Broken buildings surrounded her, their windows like hollow eye sockets, waiting for wandering souls to stare back in despair. A distant sound echoed, a childish giggle twisted into a sob, a sorrowful mockery that sent shivers racing across her skin. Ava, the voice was familiar yet distorted, echoing from every shadow. Help us find us, panic seized her. What was this place? Straining against the panic, she remembered the child in the mirror, their pleading eyes burning through her memory. I'm here. She shouted against the oppressive silence, but her voice felt swallowed by the darkness. As she took hesitant steps, the shadows seemed to stretch towards her, intertwining with her feet. Each step burned, and she could almost feel the icy fingers curling around her ankles, each one dragging her down into a feeling of dread that permeated the air. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her mind like barbed wire. Don't listen to them. A voice pierced through the tumult. A girl, no older than 12, emerged from the gloom. Her clothes were tattered rags, dirt streaked across her face. But it was her eyes that horrified Ava. They were wide, wild, the color of stormy seas, desperately pleading for salvation. What are you doing here? The girl gasped, glancing over her shoulder, as if something lurked just out of sight. You shouldn't have come. I'm trying to help, Ava said, breathless. Where are the others? The children? The girl's eyes flared with fright. They can't escape. You can't save them. They're trapped in the depths. She pointed to a dark alley between two crumbling houses. The shadows slithered closer, and Ava took a step back, instinctively clutching Mr. Fluff tighter. Her heart raced, pounding in her chest as panic began to overwhelm. I have to try. She cried, forcing herself to move toward the alley despite every instinct telling her to flee. Wait! The girl screamed, but Ava didn't stop. She couldn't. A surge of determination coursed through her veins, a fierce need to uncover the truth. The shadows pressed against her with chilling desperation, whispering words she couldn't quite make out. As she stepped into the alley, an overwhelming force gripped her. The darkness swirled, tugging her in all directions. Panic surged, but her eyes were fixed ahead. At the end of the alley stood a large, rusted door, covered in grotesque symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. Open it! The girl shouted, urgency laced into her voice. But be careful, what lies beyond is worse than this. Ava felt the door's magnetic pull, begging for her touch. Her mind whirled with fears of what she might find. Could she risk it? Were the trapped children worth the unknown horrors waiting just beyond that threshold? With a deep breath, she rushed to the door, her fingers trembling as she reached for the cold, rusting handle. She glanced back, searching the girl's face for reassurance, but all she found was terror mirrored in those stormy eyes. Do it! The girl shouted, her voice breaking. We need you. Ava turned back, the pounding of her heart drowning out the whispers, the promises, the screams. And then, she twisted the handle. What awaited her on the other side? Would it be the key to freeing the children, or a darkness that would claim her too? Desperation gripped her as she swung the door open. What was she about to unleash? The door creaked open, revealing an abyss that seemed to swallow the very light around her. Ava hesitated, heart racing, barely able to see. The faint glow from the village flickered like a dying candle behind her, and the swirls of darkness beckoned her forward. Shadows writhed and twisted within the doorway, contorting into gnarl and bone, shifting forms that taunted her every breath. Ava, the voice wailed again, haunting and beautiful, echoing from the inky void. Please don't leave us. She stepped through the threshold, and the door slammed shut behind her. Darkness enveloped her as if a heavy fog had descended. Her breath quickened, panic clawing at her throat while the space around her distorted. She was in a narrow corridor, the walls damp and uninviting, their surfaces slick with something dark and oily residue that left a chilling sting on her fingertips. That a faint light drew her further in, trembling between two darkened passages. A foul, acrid scent clawed at her nostrils as she approached. The light flickered ominously, revealing what appeared to be drawings etched into the walls, scenes of despair, of children reaching out, their small hands forever grasping at shapes beyond their reach, trapped within these anguished lines, their mouths twisted in silent screams. Help us! The ghostly whispers intensified. A dozen voices, none her own, melded into one pleading out. We are here. Ava felt sick. The weight of their sorrow pressed down on her, the emptiness in their eyes seemed all too real. Each step deeper into the gloom drove nails of despair into her heart. She had to keep moving, to find them. She turned right into the glowing light, pushing deep into the heart of the horror. As she walked, the corridor twisted sharply, leading her to a large, open room with a ceiling that stretched impossibly high. The light illuminated dust motes swirling, but it did little to soothe her rising dread. In the center of the room, she found a circle of children, their faces pale and frozen in fear. They stood motionless, encircled by tall shadows, whispering to one another in low, guttural tones, their dark forms cloaked and lurking just out of sight. The air grew frigid, sending a shiver through Ava as she beheld the sight, a pitiful tableau of lost souls. Who are you? One child whispered, his voice trembling. His round eyes, widened with terror, were filled with a darkness that made her gut clench. We can't leave. The shadows shifted closer, the whispers turning into snarls, hissing threats wrapped in deceit. They were feeding off the children's fear, drawing energy from their despair. No. You have to fight. Ava found her voice, but it sounded fragile against the suffocating darkness. "I'll help you. We can escape together." "Ava?" The familiar voice rang out again. The eyes of the boy flickered with recognition. "But how?" She hesitated, unsure. In that moment, the shadows surged, pouring forward like a relentless tide. The room vibrated with their frenzy, the children screamed as their wavering forms threatened to engulf them. "Stay close!" Ava shouted, reaching for the frightened boy, pulling him towards her. But as they moved, other children began to falter, their figures flickering as they became less substantial against the encroaching doom. Suddenly, a heavy hand gripped her shoulder, freezing her in place. A low growl rumbled from the darkness behind her. "You shouldn't have come here." A chill ran down her spine. She was not alone in this wretched place. Something was watching her, something more sinister than the shadows. "What is going to happen?" she whispered, but right then, the room began to twist and bend, the shadows closing around them, laughter echoing with an ominous finality. In that searing moment, she realized, the only way out now was to confront the fear itself. What had she awakened? Could she muster the strength to defy the darkness? Would she become another lost soul, forever inscribed within the despairing circles of stone? Ava felt the weight of despair pressing against her chest. Panic surged through her veins, hotter than fear. The shadows twisted, elongating their forms, reaching out with claw-like fingers, digging into her resolve. She clutched the boy's arm, but he was slipping, his essence wavering like a candle flame caught in a storm. "Hold on!" she cried, teeth gritted, tears blurring her vision as she pulled harder. The whispers escalated into a cacophony of agonized screams. "Please, we can escape together. Follow me." But the deeper she moved into the abyss, the more weight she felt, as if gravity itself conspired against her. With every desperate step, the shadows swirled tighter, suffocating her hope. The walls breathed around her, pulsing like a living entity, echoing her own heartbeat, reminding her that this wasn't just a place of fear, it was a prison. "Ava!" The boy's voice sliced through the air. "Please! I can't." She turned to him, hope threading through the dread. "Yes, you can. Just believe." For a moment, the shadows paused, as if stunned by her defiance. The fluttering light flickered, casting ghostly shapes on the walls, children trapped in endless loops of terror, but then the growl erupted from the darkness again, more guttural this time. "Foolish girl, where do you think you're going?" The words slithered around her, cold as ice, wrapping her in despair. The shadows warped, transforming into figures, their faces a grotesque mishmash of lost children, shapes she recognized from the drawings. They stared at her, their eyes hollow, mouths open in a silent scream. They were the very essence of despair, their hopes extinguished. "Join us," one whispered, its voice echoing through her mind, cold and inviting. The boy trembled, drawing back. Ava could see the terror reflected in his eyes, the same terror that filled her. She had awakened something ancient and hungry. "No." Ava fought against the tide of bleakness crashing around her. "I won't give up." "You can fight it." But doubt seeped in. Could they really escape? Or was this just a cruel lure into deeper darkness? The shadows surged forward, the temperature around them plummeting. Ava felt every breath drawing in bitter cold, every heartbeat reverberating like a war drum. "What is happening?" the boy urged, fear coating his words. "Stay with me." She insisted fiercely, her grip tightening on his wrist. She took a step back, forcing her mind to clear. She focused on the children's eyes, their silent cries carving a path in her heart. Then, a blinding light surged from her chest, warmth spilling into the frigid space. The shadows recoiled, shrieking, their forms blurring with the brightness. "What is that?" the boy gasped, his eyes wide with wonder and terror. "It's hope!" Ava shouted, her voice rising above the screams. "We have to hold on to hope. Together." With each word, the light pulsed, pushing back against the encroaching abyss. The shadows contracted, furious and desperate, clawing at the edges of the brightness. The children's faces began to shift, expressions morphing from despair to something that resembled yearning, but then a piercing scream tore through the air. "You don't belong here." It was a cacophony of voices, all speaking as one, a command wrapped in malevolence that jolted Ava. The light flickered, wavering as she fought to maintain her focus. "Ava! We're losing them." The boy's voice trembled, dread creeping back into the edges of their fragile hope. No. She wouldn't let that happen. Suddenly, she remembered the voices, the individual cries. "Focus. Believe. We're stronger together." The light surged again, igniting a golden glow that bathed the room, illuminating the children's faces, each one flickering between despair and hope. "Join us." They called, not in sorrow, but with a fierce determination ignited by Ava's defiance, yet, the shadows recoiled as if wounded, gathering their strength. "You cannot escape us." The growl morphed into a roar, shaking the very ground underfoot. Ava looked around, desperate. The light was beginning to fade. "We need to move. Keep the light alive." But a dark figure detached itself from the shadows. It was more solid than the others, looming ominously, malice and pain swirling around it. "You think you can conquer the darkness?" it hissed. And then, with a sudden lurch, the ground beneath her feet cracked open, revealing a gaping maw of pitch blackness. It was a beckoning void, showing no signs of reprieve. Ava gasped, the icy feeling of dread clawing back into her. "Together?" The boy's voice trembled, uncertainty flooding his words. Would she lose everything? Or could they descend into this abyss and reclaim the remnants of light? As the darkness loomed closer, filling every corner, Ava was faced with a choice that could change everything: flee back into the light, leaving the children behind, or face the darkness head-on. The ground rumbled, and the gaping maw yawned wider, devouring the faint rays of light that clung to their surroundings. The shadows danced hungrily at the edges of the abyss, enticing Ava and the boy closer with their whispering promises. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, yet she felt her legs unwilling to move. "Ava!" the boy yelled, a whimper threading through his voice. "We can't go down there. We have to find a way back up." The darkness shimmered, a living mass writhing with anticipation. Ava's breath hitched as chilling fingers of dread gripped her throat. Memories flickered like ghostly images, snippets of her life before this nightmare had begun. It felt like a lifetime ago, and she was terrified it might end there. In that moment, she grasped his hand tighter, the warmth of his skin against hers becoming a lifeline in this freezing world of despair. What if there's a chance? She pressed, her voice trembling but steady against the roiling darkness. What if we could save them? He met her gaze, hope warring against terror in his wide eyes. But at what cost? Before she could answer, the shadowy figure ahead surged forward, its face shifting into the semblance of a child she vaguely recognized, one of the countless faces from the drawings. "You can't save them. They're lost just like me." The voice echoed, low and disturbing, clawing at Ava's heart. Panic surged within her. No. She dismissed its attempt to sway her. "They're not gone. They're waiting for us." A tremor reverberated through the ground as if the very foundation of this horrific place quaked at her defiance. "You think love will save them?" the figure hissed. "This place feeds on love. It deepens the darkness." Ava watched as the shadows shifted, momentarily separating to illuminate the children's faces, longing for something just out of reach. Tears pricked at her eyes. She remembered their laughter, bright and innocent. They needed her. "We can't ignore them." She could almost hear them, little voices begging for release. The boy, his resolve faltering, glanced from her to the abyss. Sweat trickled down his temples as the fear twisted his features. "But you heard them. It's a trap." It was a trap, and what if she walked straight into it? Ava's heartbeat thundered in her ears, a countdown to despair. We can't back down, she insisted, forcing the words out through her clenched throat. Do you really believe you can withstand the darkness? The shadow's laughter echoed off the walls, a sound of malice mingled with pain. Ava squared her shoulders. Yes. She shouted back defiantly, the ground shuddered violently, cracks spiderwebbing out from the center towards their feet. You won't be able to save them all. The darkness warned, its tone coaxing yet ominous. But Ava already knew the truth, she couldn't save them all. But she could save the boy. And somehow, kindle hope in someone. I won't be alone. She yelled into the void, defiance surging through her veins, igniting an internal fire. Go. The boy urged, his voice rising with urgency. If we jump in together, no. Ava's thoughts raced. Their courage was weak against the shadow's will. We have to fight. We need to reach the light. But as she spoke, the shadows snaked closer, wrapping around them, squeezing the resolve until it cracked. The chilling whispers began again, more persistent, more seductive. Join us. Embrace the darkness. Ava's vision blurred with panic. The ground trembled again, louder now, shaking violently. The walls seemed to close in, hungry, desperate. Back to the light, she breathed, clutching the boy's hand tighter. But the darkness surged forward, a tidal wave of despair crashing against their fragile resolve. The shadowy figure reached out, its clawed hands thick with malice, ready to pull them into the abyss. Ava gasped, pulling the boy away, but the shadows were relentless, a whirlwind dragging them down. Trust me. She cried, feeling the magnitude of the darkness's weight pressing in, and as they stood at the precipice, the world around them swirled into chaos, a rush of noise, shadows writhing. And light flickering. The very fabric of reality seemed to rip apart at the seams, echoing their fear. What now? The boy yelled, panic rising in his voice. Ava hesitated, heart racing. I don't know, but we have to make a choice. In that moment of swirling chaos, the darkness reached an ear-piercing climax, and Ava's breath caught painfully, tangled in dread. Could they summon the courage to leap into the unknown? Or would the shadows swallow them whole? And as the shadows surged, roaring their hunger, Ava faced the chilling truth: escape would demand more than courage. It would take an unthinkable sacrifice, one that could either unleash salvation or plunge them into eternal darkness. What would she be willing to give up to save them all? The darkness quivered, waiting for her answer. The shadows surged, swirling like a violent storm, as Ava's mind raced. Her heart pounded against her ribcage, each beat a frantic plea for survival. We can't stand here. She shouted, her voice echoing against the darkness, desperate to drown out the whispers that clawed at her sanity. The boy's grip tightened. But what choice do we have? If we go in, we could lose everything. Or we could save them, Ava pressed, her voice trembling but fierce. Each word felt heavy with the weight of hope, an anchor tethering her to resolve in the chaos. Yet doubt gnawed at her, a shadow that slithered into her thoughts. Look! The boy's voice wavered, pointing into the depths. The darkness began to take shape, twisting and turning into figures, children who mirrored the tortured faces from her memories. Their hollow eyes pleaded for help, drawing forth a wave of grief that threatened to drown Ava whole. Stop it! She exclaimed, squeezing her eyes shut, pushing the vision away. Yet the figures lunged toward her, their hands outstretched, whispering her name. Ava, Ava, no. She stumbled back, fear heightening as the shadows clung to her, cold and relentless. A shudder tore through the ground beneath her, making her stumble. Reflection became an unreachable dream as the shadows dimmed further alongside the children's cries. The boy gasped, back against the jagged edge of the abyss. What if we can't come back? Ava's breath caught, the weight of his words crashing over her. What if they couldn't return to warmth or light? She imagined the color fading from their world forever. Then we have to be strong together. The childlike figures hissed, their voices merging into a deafening roar. Forgive us. We're lost. We need you. But Ava shook her head, teeth clenched. You're not lost, you just don't want to be saved, she whispered defiantly, the trembling in her hands turning into resolve. Please don't do this. The shadows quivered, swirling faster, and with it came the intense pull of the abyss. It felt alive, a voracious creature hungering for their frightened souls. Join us. The shadows beckoned, seducing her with visions of peace, a chance to forget, to surrender. No. She cried out, grasping the boy's hand tighter. We can't lose ourselves. As if in response to her desperation, the earth beneath began to split further apart, jagged edges yawning wide. The boy's face was pale, terror stark in his wide eyes. Do you think we're strong enough to fight it? It feels too strong. Oh my God, there was a sympathetic note in his voice, giving her strength. Ava inhaled sharply, the air thick with hesitation and dread. We must believe. He nodded, steeling himself beside her. Together. Together. Fire ignited in her chest. They could challenge the darkness. The shadows danced angrily, responding to this newfound courage with a fury that shook the ground. You will fail. They roared, the voices rising as if echoing from the very abyss they loathed. I want to let you take us. Ava howled as the shadows lunged at them, their claws outstretched. Instinct surged through her. Now. With a cry that shattered the chaos, they leaped forward, breaking the grasp of fear and stepping straight into the depths of the unknown. The moment was electric, tearing through the fabric of their reality as they fell. And in that terrifying descent, as shadows wrapped around them, Ava's heart raced with a mixture of dread and defiance. What awaited them in the shrouded depths was yet to be seen. Would it lead to hope or damnation? But just before impact, a blinding light erupted from the void, illuminating the abyss with a fierce glow. Hold on! Ava screamed, but could they endure what lay ahead? The void shimmered, and suddenly a whispering darkness called from deeper still, weaving its sinister promise through the air, sending chills up her spine. You can't escape that easily. What awaited them next? Would they find the strength to face the true horror lying below? The moment the light hit, it engulfed them, wrapping around like a warm blanket, but not for long. The bright radiance flickered, shadows creeping back into sight, coiling around the two figures. Ava squinted against the harsh glare, heart racing. This was just a brief reprieve. We're still falling. The boy shouted, panic threading through his voice. There was no surface, no end, only an endless descent marked by the tormenting shadows swirling at the edges of the light. We have to stay together. Ava urged, fighting to maintain her voice above the rising terror roiling in her chest. The ground seemed far beneath them, an abyss of swirling darkness where memories writhed and faded, forever lost. As they plunged deeper into the unknown, time lost its meaning. The shadows beckoned them with soft whispers, promising answers to their deepest fears, breathing life into doubts that clung like mist. Join us, they cooed. No. Ava cried, squeezing the boy's hand even tighter, her nails digging into his skin. We can't trust them. They want to break us. He gave a slight nod, but she could see at the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. The assault of voices pressed against their minds, invasive and insistent, clawing at their resolve. Suddenly, the light dimmed, consumed by swirling fog. Ava felt the boy's grip slip slightly as fear clawed at her throat. They began to slow, their descent turning into a gentle hover over a vast nothingness. Below, the floor shimmered, reflecting the light like a darkened mirror. Look! He whispered, pointing. Forms started to materialize underneath the luminous sheen. The children's faces from before twisted into grotesque grins, their hollow eyes wide, reaching out with longing hands. They were pulling themselves from the shadows, rising like lost souls from the depths. Ava felt sick. Each face twisted and morphed, some familiar, others entirely foreign. What are they? "They're not real," he stammered, voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Right?" His question hung heavily, dripping with doubt. As if awakening to the scent of fear, the figures began to chant, their sorrowful cries melding into a chaotic symphony of despair. "You left us. You abandoned us." The sounds twisted into a cacophony, suffocating and oppressive, bearing down on them like an unseen weight. "No!" Ava shouted, panic flooding her senses. "We didn't abandon anyone." But her shaky defense felt feeble against the growing tide of grief. A shadow slashed at her thoughts, sharper than any blade. "You can be free. Join them, Ava. Embrace the darkness," it hissed, its breath cool against her cheek. The boy recoiled, his eyes darting. "We have to fight it. Together." She reminded him, desperate. As if reacting to their resolve, the figures gnashed their teeth, their screams transforming into a vicious roar that echoed through the abyss, darkening the light until it was nothing but a tiny flicker. "Hold on!" Ava yelled, tightening her grip on the boy's hand. The ground beneath them trembled, fissures opening, revealing swirling voids darker than pitch. The faces began to change again, pain morphing into rage. "Why did you come here? You should have stayed away." From the depths a new presence surged, something far more malevolent. It was a pulse, a rush of power that danced across their skin like ice. "What if we can't fight it?" The boy's voice quivered. Ava met his gaze, determination burning through her fear. "If we don't try, we've already lost." With that, they hurled themselves back into the swirling tempest, embracing the unknown one more time. The figures lunged for them, dark, clawing hands outstretched, and at the moment when it seemed all was lost, a booming laughter resonated through the void, thick with malice. "You thought you could escape? Oh, but it's just beginning what awaited them in that darkness. Were they to become another memory trapped in this never-ending horror?" Ava's heart thundered as the malevolent laughter echoed around her, chilling her to the very core. Adrenaline surged. She gripped the boy's hand tightly, their fingers locked in a desperate bond against the darkness rising up to consume them. "We have to believe," she shouted, vision narrowing on the flickering light still glowing within the abyss. "This isn't the end." The furious cacophony of children's cries surged around them, mounting to a crescendo of despair. "You were never supposed to come here." The voices shrieked, their lament twisting into a nightmare symphony. Shadows lashed out with clawed hands, reaching for Ava and the boy, trying to pull them into the heart of their swirling terror. "No." The boy's voice was raw with fear and conviction. "We aren't afraid of you." In that moment of defiance, Ava felt something shift within her. She took a step forward, amplifying the flickering light that still danced around them. "If we don't fight for them, who will?" she cried out. "You are stronger than this darkness." The light pulsed from her chest, brighter than before, as new hope sparked in her heart. "Do you really think light can chase away the shadows?" One of the dark figures hissed, its distorted form looming closer, mocking their courage. "You're nothing but lost souls." But in her mind, Ava found the faces of the children, their innocent eyes filled with hope and longing. "We fight for the lost," she yelled, feeling empowered. "We fight for you." With that, they hurled themselves deeper into the abyss, into the swirling chaos that threatened to envelop them. A blinding flash erupted, refracting off the darkness, illuminating the anguished faces lurking within. They surged forward together, energy building with every heartbeat, fueled by determination and empathy. "Believe in each other," Ava shouted, locking eyes with the boy as they flew through the darkness. With a mighty thrust, they reached for the tendrils of light flowing around them, letting it wash over their trembling bodies like a flood of warmth. The shadows recoiled, howling with each encroaching wave of brightness. Then, reality shifted. In a blink, they broke free from the tempest, hurling themselves into a wide-open space. They landed on solid ground in a serene glade. The oppressive gloom faded, replaced with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and birdsong. Confusion muddled her mind. Where were they? Look! The boy gasped, pointing toward a circle of children. Faces she had seen in her dreams, bright and joyful, smiling back as if they had emerged from a long, dark sleep. It's them. They're finally free. Oh my God! Ava felt her heart leap. Just beyond the circle, there lay the rusted door they had traversed earlier, now shimmering with light. But before they could run to the children, shadows crept back toward them, dark forms slipping like vapor, hungry for retribution. You cannot escape. No. Ava pointed her finger defiantly at the shadows, now swirling ominously. This isn't over. We will fight for the souls you attempt to trap. The air crackled as Ava felt that same warmth surge through her. She and the boy joined forces, channeling their energies toward the swirling shadows. You don't own us. You don't win. They screamed, intertwining their words with light. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the power coursing through Ava's veins. A brilliant aura began to envelop her and the boy, and with a fierce push, they forced the light out into the dark. The shadows writhed, shrinking under the light's reach, their whispers dissolving into cries of anguish. No. We will haunt your dreams. No. Ava shouted louder, feeling the rightness of their fight. You will no longer haunt anyone. With one final burst of energy, their light lashed out like a whip, and the shadows imploded, unraveling back into the void. Around them, the children cheered, their courage restored with every flicker. The familiar laughter filled the air, a joyous melody rising to the heavens. As the last of the shadows dissipated, Ava and the boy stood panting, the warmth of victory settling around them like a comforting embrace. The world had shifted anew, but this time, it felt whole, filled with hope and the promise of beginnings. Ava turned to the boy, her heart racing with excitement. We did it. The children rushed forward, surrounding them. You found us. You saved us. But as the laughter echoed around her, the glowing door at the back of the glade shimmered, calling to them. Ava felt the weight of realization pressing on her heart. This world, vibrant and alive, hadn't been created without loss. They had found the children, yet each face still carried remnants of sorrow, a reminder of what they had triumphed over. Together, she whispered, holding up her palm to the boy. We will always remember and honor those who couldn't escape. This is only the beginning. They clasped hands, ready to lead the children back through the door, their spirits high. One last glance back at the clearing, the laughter abiding like a gentle breeze, and Ava stepped forth. As the portal shuddered, her heart surged with hope and purpose. This was the magic of courage, the light within never extinguished, not as long as they guarded one another. Thank you for being a part of Ava's journey. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories, smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful hope can be. Your support means the world. Let us keep the adventure alive together.